regarding the my public comment is regarding the design of the customer dashboard and Benefits Cal. The dashboard has been really very helpful in allowing me to track my benefits and report changes. However, I feel that there are aspects of the design that are extremely problematic. My first example of one of those problems would be the current design opens links like the Help Center in a new tab, and then the timeout clock runs out on one or both tabs, and I get kicked out of the system and then to reactivate in the system, which means I have to go through the whole reauthorization process, which can take up to 3 screens to get through. And it's really frustrating. Number two, the list of EB tree transactions are the biggest irritation. They do not show a transaction as a purchase or a refund, making it difficult to track. I can only see a limited number of transactions, which also makes it hard to track my benefits. This has since been rectified in the last few days. I could get into that further. It doesn't separate the cash purchases from the CalFresh purchases, even though there are two separate buttons to view separate balances, and the same transaction log shows up in both. And that could be rectified by a change in font color or an indicator of some way. It does show when a balance is, it doesn't show when a balance is added like a bank account would. And all of these issues make it extremely difficult to track transactions and identify possible skimming or fraud. All of these issues are obviously not a good design choice and never should have been set up that way. Next, text messages when a notice of action comes through are really helpful, especially when mail can be unreliable. However, the text for appointments don't say anything about the location where the appointment might be. And this requires me to log into the website again to search around to find that information. Why don't the messages include basic things like that? Next, the notices are linked to the PDF forms to download the notices of action rather than readable within the system right away. And it makes it harder to look at them on a handheld device. 5, the notices only include the title, not a summary of the message, even for trivial updates. Next, my Medi-Cal is currently listed on the site as being discontinued, even though it is not. My case information is supposed to be available for a full year, but the website states that it's only available for 6 months. And the link to request a new BIC card in Medi-Cal section doesn't work. But for some reason, there is a link in the CalFresh section that does let me request a new BIC card. So it's just very confusing that it's not in the right section to try and get to that card. And I understand.
Heather,
Yes.
Heather, is your name Heather? I'm sorry.
Yeah, am I at time already?
Yeah, you're at time, but I did want to say there it is. Oh, there it is. Albert, we are taking notes of all that feedback, and so we definitely appreciate you giving that to us, and good luck with your studies. I heard you say you're aspiring student. So
thank you.
I believe that there's a second member of the public, Gabby.
Yes, thank you. So good morning, everyone. My name is Gabby Davidson with the California Association of Food Banks, and I'm sharing some comments regarding CFB's data dashboard with recently updated information about supplemental security income or SSI recipients enrolled in CalFresh since the 2019 eligibility expansion. So firstly, we sincerely appreciate CalSAWS for its support of SSI recipients seeking CalFresh assistance at Social Security Administration offices. This approach significantly reduces procedural barriers such as missed interviews that can hinder enrollment. And we're also excited that more than 64% of SSI recipients in California have enrolled in food benefits. These enrollments reduce hunger and boost local economic activity. However, we recognize there's still more work to be done to achieve full enrollment and ensure equitable access. Currently, only 52% of Spanish-speaking SSI recipients and 56% of SSI recipients with disabilities, ages 18 to 59, are enrolled in CalFresh, compared to the statewide average of 64%. So we look forward to continuing to collaborate with partners, including CalSAWS and county agencies, to improve CalFresh enrollment rates among older adults and individuals with disabilities facing hunger. Our recommendations for achieving full enrollment include prioritizing making improvements to Benefits Cal for Spanish speakers, older adults, and people with disabilities who often face high barriers to successfully navigating online application platforms. Thank you for updating the Benefits Cal brochures and working to update the Spanish CalFresh application based on advocate suggestions. We hope that strengthening language access in Benefits Cal can help increase Spanish SSI CalFresh enrollment rates. Additionally, we look forward to continuing to collaborate at user-centered design meetings in the collaboration model and other meetings to ensure people with disabilities can easily access and use Benefits Cal. Also, we did notice when gathering data that nearly all counties in migration waves 1, 2, 3, and 6 had a massive spike in denials for SSI recipient CalFresh applications. Denials spiked between 21 and 51% during these migration waves, and the denials increases coincided with the month in or following migration, and in many cases didn't subside quickly. So we encourage CalSAWS to partner with counties from these migration waves to investigate what may have happened and identify opportunities to reach out to SSI recipients who may have faced increased barriers to CalFresh enrollment during those migration periods. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comment. We look forward to ongoing collaboration to improve access to food benefits for all eligible individuals. If you're interested in exploring the data dashboard and all of our recommendations, you can learn more in our blog post, which I'll post in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that information. Before I move on, I was super excited about public comment that I omitted agenda review. So, Julia, can you walk us through today's agenda, and then we will just allow for other opportunities should be members of the public that would like to touch on something else. So can we do it? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So right after this, we're going to approve the meeting minutes from the September PSC meeting. In terms of informational items, Arnold and team will be going over our performance trends at a high level, focusing on the deltas there. Then we're getting a Benefits Cal update. There's several things that are in flight with Benefits Cal. So Lynn and owner and team will be providing those. Followed by a very exciting conversation on release and policy updates from Lisa. This has been a standing item, Fresno Gen AI update, just giving updates on that pilot that's underway and some new data. Then the Gainwell infrastructure transition in discussion. That contract was executed at the last JPA meeting. Don Wilder was speaking to some of the transition in plans. The Highland imaging infrastructure update comes after that. The Highland team will be providing some opportunities and some insights from some recent activity. Peggy with an ICT update. Then Tom Hartman will be speaking on the Benefits Cal RFP update and the progress on that. Then we'll hear from our state partners, followed with regional priorities from all of our PSC members.
Thank you. Thank you. Having heard the agenda review, are there any other members of the public that would like to speak on non-agenda items? Seeing none and hearing none, we'll go ahead and move on to our first action item, item number 4, the approval of the September 19 PSC meetings. Are there any questions or comments? Are there any questions or comments of the public? Is there a motion to approve the September 19 minutes?
This is Ryan Bishop. Motion to approve the September 19 minutes.
Is there a second?
This is Cindy. I'll second. Cindy, Region 4.
Thank you. We have a first and a second. Julia, can you assist with the roll call vote, please?
Yes. Clarissa? I approve. Eduardo? I approve. Cecilia?
I approve.
Jamae?
I approve.
Albert,
Approve.
Sandra,
Approve.
Sean,
I approve.
Olga.
Approve.
Oh, Irene, are you on?
I don't believe she's still on.
All right, we have approval of the meeting minutes. Albert.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next, our first informational item, performance trends. Arnold?
All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Arnold Malvik. I'm the Accenture Project Executive. We'll hit the highlights, and luckily there weren't any perturbations in the system, so it's going to be a boring update of 100% availability. So that was through the July and September timeframe. If I look at our cost of rework and also our onshore-offshore metrics, we are currently sitting at about 64% of the work being done onshore, about 36% of the work being done offshore. Main reason for that, we're contractually limited at 40% for offshore, but we have to take a look at the mix of work and whether it's dealing with personally identifiable information. And so we adjust the workforce based upon the type of work that's flowing through the teams at that point in time. From a cost of rework and a quality perspective, we still see outstanding quality as evidenced by the 2407 release, as well as the 2401 through 2405. So well below the 10% threshold. So continuing to produce high quality. Rachel, you'd like to cover the benefits cal?
Thanks, Arnold, and I will continue with your boredom statement here too. For benefits cal for the last quarter, we have maintained our performance for daily transactions, which is essentially the interactions that customers and CBOs have with the system at 100%. For our onshore offshore, we do not have a target that we have to meet, and so ours will consistently stay the same. So you'll always see a 45-55 split.
All right, thank you, Rachel. Sarah, do you want to cover Highland and imaging?
I sure will. Thank you. Good morning. My name is Sarah Kiewit with Highland to review the imaging SLAs. Ours isn't quite as boring because we did have a couple of incidents in July and August for monthly uptime. The target each month is 99.9%. And unfortunately, that target was missed in July and August, which did result in SLA credits. We did discuss both of these last month, so I won't go into a lot of detail, but just as a quick recap, the July incident occurred after business hours and was due to an unstable database cluster, while the August incident was due to an issue on the Highland product side causing session timeouts. These issues have been resolved and measures have been put in place to prevent them from occurring in the future. The boring part is the page views and database transactions, which each have a monthly target of 90%. And as you can see, the targets were met for each month with an average of 98.81% for providing access to 70 kilobyte page views in 2 seconds or less, and 99.91% for database transactions to complete in 1 second or less. So that is the imaging update from Highland.
Thank you, Sarah. And I know we'll be having a special topic later on. We'll deep dive a little more on the steps that Highland is taking on the infrastructure. So thank you for that update. Alberto, back to you.
Thank
Alberto,
you. Are there any?
There you go.
Yeah. Thank you. Are there any comments of PSC members? Any comments of the public? Seeing none and hearing none. Thank you, team, for that update. Next item, please.
The benefits cal update, Len and owner.
Good morning, everyone. This is Lynn Bridwell for the ROI update. At this point, we're still awaiting the final letter to be released. Both DHCS and CDSS continue to work on their reviews and are finishing up their legal reviews as well, from my understanding. So we're awaiting for that release. We did meet earlier this month, and we started a discussion about capturing CBO information. And the CBO information we're looking at is like names, addresses, and ensuring the staff and how we can capture that information within Benefits Cal and CalSAWS, so that when we're able to implement the functionality, somebody could search and find the person that they're looking for to designate that release of information. So it is going to be a type of searching and figuring out a nice way to house that so that it's user friendly. So we've decided we started some of those discussions around that and what it will look like before we get into any real design. We will continue to meet. We have another meeting scheduled for late this month. And we'll see any progress on the letters and any other the topics that we can talk about in preparation for looking at what automation changes may be needed. And with that, I can turn it over to owner.
Thank you, Ben. Next slide, please. Thank you. In the next few minutes, I'm going to provide an update to our steering committee board for the upcoming items that we are working on. As Julia mentioned in the beginning, there is a series of items that we are heavily working on from the system improvement standpoint. I will just provide a highlight instead of going through each and every one item on the list because it's kind of busy, as you can see. First item I would like to highlight for the month of October is regarding the login MFA experience for the customers. In order to make it more intuitive and user-friendly and convenient for the customers, we are adding a feature for customers to switch on the fly during the login process from phone to email. If they signed up for phone in the beginning, but their phone was not available, but their email is accessible, so they can switch the email, vice versa. So that functionality is going to be available starting after the October release later this month. Sure. And in terms of the second item I would like to highlight is the ABOT functionality. ABOT is something that from policy standpoint, we have been working since May earlier this year, and the feature is currently targeted for early 2025, around January timeframe. And of course, there is UCD research that we are working with CDSS and our advocate partners and the CBOs in terms of the some of the policy items and CBO related functionality. For later this year, as part of the month of November, we received suggestions, language revision suggestion for the Spanish language from our advocate partners. We really appreciate the input. We are working on implementing those changes and the recommendations in the system. Not only are they reported, we also research through where those words are used across the 700 pages, the entire application. So we are reflecting those changes across the board. It is coming up next month in the month of November. And of course, a series of UCD research listed out here that we are going to be very busy with. If you go later in this calendar year for the month of December, we are adding a new threshold language, the Mandarin language. The 21st language is being simplified Chinese is going to be added to Benefits-Cal. Across all the flows, application flow and the renewals and everything. Everything you see in the application will be translated for this new threshold language. And as we move on to the 2025, we have items coming up, policy items that we have been working with our state partners, DHCS and CDSS, as well as EBT and the document upload related changes are also targeted for early 2025 that we are actively working on it. If you can move on to the next slide, please. So next few minutes, I would like to briefly touch on what we have done so far in the calendar year 2024 from the that would positively affect the end user experience. This is not everything, but this is kind of a high level summary. As you can see, I think we highlighted some of them from the critical features of the application, not the entire application, but that we are hearing from our UCD research channels or the CX channels or our advocate partners and other stakeholders and the counties, primarily around the document upload, case linking, account management, the dashboard experience, EBT functionality, which are really heavily used by our customers. Outside of these like 44 items that we listed, we highlighted in the header, 9 of these changes were tied to the one upload functionality because we average around 2.4 to 2.7 million documents and images uploaded on a monthly basis. In order to improve the usability in that domain, 9 improvements have been completed throughout the year so far, and more to come. and primarily make the experience easier for the customers, also in the downstream for counties to minimize the recategorization of those documents. So they don't have to, like other is less selected, more accurately picked by the customers. Another area that I would like to highlight here is for the account management and the case linking. To adhere with the consortium's privacy and the security rules, as well as to make the experience to also protect the customer's data. A series of changes have been made throughout the calendar year, primarily for the multi-factor authentication field to the login flow, as well as case linking. And EBT 2259 flow has been digitized in the Benefiscal application to make sure if there's an EBT theft situation happen, God forbid, allowing customers to report those transactions digitally and conveniently on the Benefiscal application instead of going to a county office in person. Last but not least, I would like to highlight here is we added some help features to the customer dashboard. We did created some customer journey maps within the application and the dashboard very frequently customers are touching, and added the inline help text and YouTube videos, embedded them to the application instead of asking them to go to the help center. We saw a significant uptick in usage of those help materials throughout the dashboard itself after implementing those changes. And we are going to continue to monitor that, and as well as the application renewals tracker has been added to the dashboard. So these are the key changes, and we are not only implementing them in a silo, but also monitoring after implementing them, how the reaction is, and primarily asking the customers if they are experiencing any issues, and we're also monitoring the calls that we are getting, tickets being logged, or any incidents or defects are being reported after delivering them to the production, to monitor them after the production deployments, essentially. So these are the key highlights from the system improvements touching the end user experience and the usability throughout the 2024 so far. Next slide, please. Next item we would like to share with our steering committee is around SSA application flow and dashboards. I think you may recall from our previous steering committee meeting, throughout the Get CalFresh parity efforts working with our state partners, CDSS and the Code for America team, we implemented a new feature called SSA Assisted Application Flow, which was deployed to production around end of September time period. And it's additional 7 enhancements requested by the SSA group, SSA team. And this feature started to get used starting September 30th. First 9 days of the month of October, SSA sisters submitted around 25 applications. The dashboard is available for the SSA sisters for them, and no errors reported so far. So we are continuously monitoring it, but it is looking positive. And in the downstream, from the county standpoint, it doesn't mean additional need for the counties. These applications are already flowing through the Benefiscal to the counties, through the SSA Get CalFresh application has this functionality. We just integrated this feature to the Benefiscal itself. This is essentially no impact in the downstream for the counties. So these are my updates from the Benefiscal standpoint for today, but I will pause here for any questions.
Any questions of the PSC? Any questions of the public? Jen, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for adding the data about the trend being consistent with the daily application count on Get CalFresh. It's really helpful to see that when we're trying to make sure that we're not losing access as Get CalFresh begins to sunset, that we can see that Benefits Cal has created something that is equivalent to what Get CalFresh has provided. So thanks, and I hope that with future updates, we'll get to see similar metrics moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen, for those comments. Any other comment from the public? Hearing none and seeing none, thank you for that update. Lisa, next item.
Hello, everyone. All right, release a policy update. We'll just need to advance some slides a little bit. All right, you look and feel. On with our new templates. So what we have here, just we'll go by calendar month. So October, we are in the middle of some priority releases. So earlier this month, we did run a mass replacement CalFresh benefits. So there were 8 counties that were impacted by power outages, mostly due to wildfires. So we reissued about $1 million across those 8 counties in September CalFresh benefits that were authorized to be replaced at 60% of the benefit amount. So that was successfully run. We just did another priority release last night with a number of correspondence updates, and we continue to have a couple more this month, just a few highlights there. As it relates to our November baseline release, that is in test right now. We're wrapping up week 3 of system test, and we're about 54% executed and passed so far on that release. County validation did start this week as well. We do have a large number of policy items, as usual with our baseline releases, a lot of correspondence updates to various forms. In addition, we do have changes going in to support family reunification. We know that is a priority to get that in. So we'll be adding a lot of automation for those impacted households, from automating the aid codes, the benefit issuance. There's correspondence changes going in all threshold languages for notices and certain forms. We'll be automating the benefits there for those households that meet the criteria for that 6-month post reunification, and logic that would extend that if good cause is implemented. So it's a very large change. It's a heavy focus for our testing teams, and an important priority as we work through that. We also have a number of changes coming up as we head into the end of the this calendar year into next. So there's some resource limit changes that we're implementing. There's an increase there for our CalFresh and RCA population. So that increase is around 4% effective the first of the year. So we're putting those changes in advance, knowing that counties start to run eligibility for January, right at the end of November. So lots of changes coming in our November release. For December, we just wanted to put on folks' radar. We typically have some batch processes we run in December. The statewide minimum wage increase is a regular change, along with a capicola. We are TBD on when we'll run that capicola. We need to get the letters, at least the draft letters, so we can start to put together a plan for that. And then we're working through that with CDSS. And then January, a little further into the future, we have our SSA COLA. So that is a multi-step, multi-partner effort. And planning is beginning for that, as well as we have a baseline release in January as well. That baseline release is in development. So, the train keeps going. Lots of changes coming in the next few months. Next slide. Just to give a quick overview of our baseline release, these are some of the key activities from testing. As I mentioned, I can't miss the fact that our QA team is heavy in testing as well. With us, release communications, obviously a very important topic to bring awareness to the changes that are going to impact your staff. So the major upcoming changes that we have already been issued. We have planning in place for the webcast. That will come up the week before, usually the week before the release, as well as the newsletters that our in-flight and our training team is putting together. So all that communication is in draft and making its way through the process. From a deployment perspective, if we get green light on November 20, we would do the deployment on Sunday the 24th. This release is always done that Thanksgiving week. I know it's a short week for folks. We get it in, and we will have those daily release calls. They are scheduled, I think, already. Daily calls those first 3 days, just to check in with our counties and see how we're progressing with that release comes live. So they're the quick highlights for the releases in general. We are now going to switch to, we just wanted to bring CARES back. It's been a few months since we talked about the development activities that we're working through on CARES and where we stand from a timeline and a development standpoint. So Michelle, did you want to kick this one off?
Yes, thank you, Lisa. So just wanted to share, we're still working with the CARES project to develop and have the initial set of APIs ready for November. We do have a couple risks that we're working through with CARES that cover, our integrated testing schedule, the final project test schedule, the extended user testing, which will come up in the spring of 2025, and then a conversion related item that we want to track with them. So we're going to be scheduling meeting with CARES team to talk about the mitigation plan to resolve those risks. So that will, that's what we're working on right now. Lisa, do you want me to pass this to you or Jason?
Okay, yeah. So we have a large number of APIs which are going to transmit real-time data between the systems. I think if some of you were at CWDA last week, there was a care session and there's some videos already out there on the website. And one of those videos includes a demonstration that we did about 6 weeks ago that shows some of the early integrations that we've built already that are in test. Between the systems, but it gives folks a chance to see the look and feel and how that information is going to be transmitted. If we go to the next slide, as it stands, we have about 14 items that we're building, and where we're at in that software development life cycles. Everything has been gone through its initial design at this point, and we are in build or in testing of all those APIs that were listed on the prior slide 14. So the top chart there on the right is kind of where are we at from our development life cycle. The bottom chart there shows where we're at from an API perspective. And as you can see, we have a few items we're still building. They're planning to be wrapped up this month. So we can continue to progress into integration testing for those remaining APIs. And again, that's a joint test with our CARES partners to make sure the data is traversing the systems as expected in accordance with the specifications. So a lot of development work there. And as Michelle said, as we head into next calendar year, planning a discussion for that and user system testing. We've heard it through various phases here as user acceptance testing. Each project has a little different nomenclature, but that will really be an opportunity for the counties to participate in hands-on keyboards, which we know is very important as we go into these integration testings, not only happy path, but unhappy path testing to make sure that we shake out all these APIs and the integration of the data that we're sending back and forth. So that's just a quick highlight for you as to where we're at again as we head into next calendar year and really gear up for those that end user testing phases. We'll have more information to share. Back to you.
Thank you, Lisa and team. Are there any questions of the PSC? Any questions of the public? Hearing none and seeing none, we'll go ahead into our next item. Andy?
Hi, everyone. My name is Andy, and I'm on the Gen AI team. We are excited to share out an update on key performance metrics and select recent enhancements for Fresno Gen AI Call Summary Assist. The solution went live in 3 phases in June and July, and the data we are sharing today is through the beginning of this month. Starting with the graph on the left-hand side of the slide here, the graph shows the end of the pre-launch period of May 31st and then moves into the following weeks where Gen AI was deployed in 3 phases. All queues were live on July 20th, as indicated by the star on the graph. Just after the pre-launch time period, we see some fluctuations in the average wrap and handle times, and as we move forward, the graph stabilizes, revealing a clear downward trend in average wrap and handle time. Since launch, average post-call wrap time has decreased by 17%, with 6% of that reduction occurring in the last 2 months. The average handle time has decreased by 14%, with the 4% of that in the last 2 months. Since the average wrap and handle times are continuing to improve over time, this suggests that the monthly enhancement releases are effective in improving the outputs and experience for eligibility workers, allowing them to wrap and handle calls more quickly. Diving into our key performance metrics, we have had over 77,000 summaries generated, 100% of summaries generated within 60 seconds, and an 8-second average call end to summary end time. We continue to see that eligibility workers are only editing around 19% of the GenAI created summaries, and we are working with the Fresno team to understand what additional insight they can provide into the changes eligibility workers are making based on QA and analysis that they are performing. Moving into our select enhancements for a look into some of the updates we have implemented recently. We added acronyms and program terms to the dictionary to improve recognition. We improved the distinction of which actions will be completed by the eligibility worker after the call. And we improved the recognition of when the customer provides an updated phone number or address. That concludes our updates. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you for the update. Any questions of the PSC? Are there any questions of the public? Hearing none and seeing none, thank you. We can go on to our next item. Dawn?
Thank you, Howard. So I do want to give you an update on our infrastructure transition. As Julia mentioned earlier, we did receive approval on that contract at the last JPA meeting, and our effective start date was October 1st. Although I'm going to talk about the fact that we've actually been working on this for a while. And so while it's going to look a lot when I get to the progress slides, like we've made an awful lot of effort in 17 days, the fact of the matter is we've actually been working on all our planning activities for a while. But I did want to give you an understanding of the general concepts of how we're going to do this transition in as we coordinate with Accenture to take on the infrastructure functions. So one of our first and probably most important general concepts or guardrails is that first one listed there, which is transition in place. What that means is we intend to more or less slide into the chairs that Accenture are occupying today and use their existing processes in the beginning to make sure that we maintain the system in the same way. There are obviously changes that have been requested and that we will be making those as we make sure we have stabilized and taken the system and run it in the way that it's being run today. And then we will move forward to making adjustments and changes. But that really makes the transition much more seamless in terms of you not noticing the change. It should just be a matter of, instead of talking to someone who has an Accenture badge, you're talking to someone who has a Gainwell badge. So that's really our first concept, which is transition in place, is what we refer to that as. The next one up there is also a very important one. We are actually conducting the transition with the ongoing team. So unlike some transitions or DBIs that you may have seen in the past where an entire transition team comes in and they do all the work and then they have to hand off again to an ongoing team, we are not executing in that fashion. We are actually executing with the people who will be the ones running the ongoing system after the transition completes. So they will have gone through the transition, they will have learned everything that we learned along the way, and then they will become the ongoing staff who continues to maintain that particular application infrastructure. So again, we feel that's one of our other most important tenets of how we're doing the transition. I'm gonna go through the rest of these just a little faster. Those first two are really the ones that are aimed at making this a much more seamless, not noticeable type transition. And then we will move into looking at improvements that we can do as quickly as possible after we've stabilized and have everything running successfully. From a change management perspective, we do also understand that we are making some change, both within the project, and there will be some changes for the counties. Although we are doing our best to keep them small, I am going to talk about one in just a couple of minutes. So there are going to be some efforts in terms of change management, and we do have a cultural transformation manager who will be taking care of those, overseeing those efforts. We do also understand there's a lot of work in flight, SCRs and county purchases and all sorts of other changes that are underway. It is our intent to keep those rolling. And we are working with Accenture to make sure we identify all those things that are in flight and make sure that we find the appropriate point in each project to make that transition. And then last but not least, we do have some governance paths that allow us to resolve any concerns that may come up in an expedited fashion. So again, those are our guardrails. Just wanted to let you know what we put in place to make this as seamless as possible. The next slide is going to give you a chance to take a look at what does our schedule look like and give you a little bit of insight into how we've divided up the work. Now, I realize that this is, there's a lot of stuff on this chart, so I'm just going to give you the quick pass on how one would read this chart. The top area in gray is all about planning activities, deliverables, getting ready, creating work plans. And you're going to look at this and wonder, why does this chart start in April if your contract started in October? As I indicated, that is an indication of the amount of time we've actually been working on planning activities and making sure that our deliverables and our master plan for how we're going to do this and our work plan were solid, and that we could actually get those submitted immediately with the contract actually going live. We in fact provided those to the consortium early. They have been extremely accommodating and reviewing our stuff ahead of the contract, and you can see that those are well underway. The bars that are in the green bluish color below are work streams. We've divided all the work into various work streams. You can see that top one is OCAT, followed by GAGR and a number of other ones. OCAT and GAGR are destined to go live with us in November. Now, GAGR, keep in mind, that is your correspondence module. That is the service that allows the counties to actually change their GAGR correspondence templates yourself, and it generates all the GAGR correspondence. As many of you probably know, Gainwell already executes that particular system. So that's a fairly easy and non-risky transition since we're transitioning to ourselves, but we do have a few contract things to take care of. OCAT is the one I'm going to be talking about on the next slide, which is again that first line there. And when you're looking at this chart, the dark line on the bottom is the plan. The lighter line above it is where we're at today. And as you can see on this chart, 17 days into it, the two are matching. So planned time to go live and the time that we are actually currently tracking to are the same. If we were having any kind of issue, you would see that with a bar that on the top that was longer than the gray bar, or if we're ahead of schedule, it will be shorter than the gray bar. The number after it, like OCAT, where it says 79%, that indicates that we are 79% through the work effort that we anticipate. So yeah, and that was a lot of data, but we wanted to give you a quick snapshot of how we've organized the work and what do the timelines look like. On the next slide, I do want to talk a little bit about OCAT, because you just saw on that timeline slide, OCAT is transitioning on November 1. So we will be taking over the OCAT infrastructure and application on November 1st. And there is an impact here to the counties we wanted to be sure you are aware of. A CIT is on its way out. We think this is an improvement, but I do want to make sure that you're all aware of it. Currently, when your users have a concern or question about OCAT, they use a special one-off process, if you will, to get to the OCAT help desk. We are going to be moving that to using the standard CalSAW service desk. So the same process that your folks use today whenever they have anything related to the CalSAW system or the GAGR system or any of those other things is that standard CalSAWS system through ServiceNow. That's how you get to the service desk. We are going to be moving the access to the OCAT help desk to that same service desk. So your staff will now use one process to access help desk services from CalSAWS, including OCAT. And there'll be a CIT on its way to you no later than Monday, which will also detail this out as well. And then the CalSAWS service desk will be picking that up. This is going to occur slightly before that November 1st date because it does require a deployment over the weekend. And so October 28th is the date in which this process change will occur, where you will start to use the CalSAWS service desk. And again, as I mentioned, there's CIT on its way and your regional managers have been briefed on this. So if you have any questions, they will also be able to assist in answering those. And with that, I think that concludes what I had to say, Alberto. So if you want to go ahead, back to you.
Thank you, Dawn. Any questions of the PSC? Any questions of the public? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and move on to our next item. Sarah?
Thank you. I am Sarah Kiewit again with Highland, and I want to thank you for the time today for Highland to provide an imaging infrastructure update. With me today, I'm going to start us off is Will Maluski, who is our Senior Vice President of Cloud Platform Engineering, joined by David Luzier, Senior Vice President of Software Engineering, who will be providing the infrastructure update for Highland. So I will turn things over to Will. Oh, Will, are you here? I think he might be on mute. He was here a moment ago. David, can you join?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you.
Do you want me to cover my parts right now instead of Will's, or how would you like to proceed?
Let's just cover Will's part, and then your part as well, if you're comfortable with that.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. Good morning. As Sarah said, my name is David Luzier. I'm Senior Vice President of Engineering here at Highland. Here to share an update. First, I'll start on the CPE side with an update on the imaging infrastructure update. Over the past 4 occasions, we've seen some slowness on the OCR or the optical character recognition process of your solution. The impact of the slowness did result in a subset of tasks and customer reported updates being delayed for up to 3 hours while routing through the OCR workflow. During this time, documents were visible and searchable by the workers, but we're going to walk through a timeline of these events. And then myself, when I give my update, I'll talk through some of the things that we've been doing to address these issues. So the event on September 23rd was due to a backend database process that deletes temporary files that have already been processed through the system. These are temporary or transient files before they get back to the perceptive content system. The background process was not keeping up with the daily volume coming in and resulted in a degradation of the database performance for the Brainware import OCR import queues. The other events on the 24th and 30th and October 7th were related to a backup or a backlog in the import queues. And what that means is documents coming from the perceptive content and then being fed into Brainware for their processing. And this was occurring during peak hours. And what we did is we identified a need to scale these environments to ensure there's adequate capacity when dealing with these additional loads to support these busy days of documents going to be processed through the system. If we go ahead and move to the next slide, please. So this shows a timeline of the OCR process slowness events. Color may not be exactly purple, but the purple boxes represent a notification to end users that an event is occurring. And then those gray lines show the event where resolved. However, we were still in a monitoring state. Those black diamonds show where a notification was sent to notify the end user that an issue had in fact actually been resolved. These events have triggered a need to address these backlog of issues with the solution, and we are taking those final steps. And if you want to go ahead into the slide change again, Sarah, for me, or whoever's driving. Okay, so for the OCR improvements and optimization, we're really focused on 3 areas of scaling, throughput, and then preventive. How do we prevent this from an ongoing basis, more in more of a real time? So on the scaling actions, what we did is we added additional compute power in the cloud dedicated to the ingestion, that import, as well as sending documents back to the perceptive content system once they were done going through the brainware processing. We've adjusted the queues on the perceptive side to take advantage of these new queues or processing power that we've added. So there's just some configuration changes that we did there on the perceptive content side to allow to take advantage of the new compute power that were added. And then for throughput, we've done a few database optimizations around increased disk level read-write speeds, as well as increasing the default database log file size to ensure volumes were no longer coming into a play. Because if we did have some database log issues or growing, that could degrade database performance and then cause some slowness as well. So we've taken action there as well. I mentioned earlier, we wanted to take a look at some of the transient or temporary files or batches that were coming into the brainware system. So we've added some process where we're running a nightly job for 12 hours, especially over the weekend, and then maybe a little less hours during the weekdays, but to really start to clean that up. And so this is really to delete those temporary files on the weekend and during the days, as I mentioned. And really, this is more of this wasn't a big issue, but we want to continue to ensure the database is running optimally. So the more we can clean up those temporary batches and files, the better. Over the rest of the year, we anticipate deleting the remaining temporary files. There were a number of those batches that were out there that we need to clean up. So we've optimized that cleanup process, and again, running those over the weekend and a shorter time period window during the week as well. And the team have been working to review the solution design from an end-to-end through the OCR and back to content. That involves looking at all of the different queues and that cleanup. So those are the ongoing actions that we've done. This phase 1 was adding those additional compute power, both on the import and export, the communication back and forth between perceptive content. And that did also involve some change in configuration on the perceptive side. And those are now, in fact, all in place. And then if I'll touch on the third one on the monitoring, this is really for an ongoing preventative measures. You know, we talked early on, and I apologize, I didn't catch the name who was showing some of the uptimes, and maybe that was you, Sarah, of going through the system. But now we want to take that a step further and really look at the solution as a whole. So what do we, start looking at the queues that can build up on the perceptive side or on the brainware side, and looking at all of these individual queues, there's many, and looking to see if there's any backups that are occurring. We also know we have goals and SLAs about processing time. So looking at that processing time and ensuring we're meeting that, exceeding that. But if we start to creep up to some of those SLAs, we want to be able to take proactive measures. So maybe that's a need for us to add additional compute power on our side. But really putting those measures in place So it's more proactive. So you're not having these issues and then you need to notify us. It's for us to be able to put these controls in place and add that to the Dynatrace monitoring so that we could take action on our side before it becomes an action in production. So those are my updates. Thank you for the time. And at this point, I'll hand it back to the chair, Alberto.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions of the PSC? Are there any questions of the public? Hearing none and seeing none, thank you so much. We'll move on to our next item. Peggy?
Good morning, everyone. I am going to be giving you an update on our ICT initiative. So just as a review, we did gather feedback from our counties via our RMs on the ICT process. We completed an analysis and identified some trends, and we have prepared our recommendations. Next slide, please. So as previously reported, we have completed several things. We have identified our executive sponsor, Ryan Bishop, who is our Region 3 PSC member. And we've also received the ICT protocol document with comments from DHCS, CDSS, and CWDA, and we are currently reviewing that feedback now. We are in the process of convening our work group. And as previously reported for training, we have completed some updates to some job aids and WBTs and quick guides, and other updates are still in progress. And we've identified a date for our future ICT CalSAWS Learning Exchange for the month of February 2025. Next slide, please. So here are the next steps, what we're currently working on. So the CRFI that is requesting the counties to identify participants for this ICT work group went out yesterday. We're seeking 5 participants from the regions. We want those participants to be county ICT coordinators, staff who manage the ICT process, have knowledge of one or more of the different ICT program rules, and who have experience with the duplicate person issues. The responses to the CRFI are due on October 30th, and we are anticipating to begin in mid-November to have a kickoff with our work group, and then we will engage bi-weekly with them as we continue working through the efforts of improving the ICT process. So that is my quick update on ICT and where we are. So I'll turn it back to Albert for any questions.
Thank you, Peggy. Any questions of the PSC? Are there any questions of the public? Seeing none and hearing none, thank you. And I also thank all those that I know will gladly volunteer to this cause. So thank you in advance. Next item, Tom?
Alberto, procurement. We're in the middle of item 11, which is going through all of the proposals, evaluating them. The evaluation teams are working diligently, and we're on schedule for all the remaining tasks. Back to you.
Boom. Are there any questions of the public? Let me take one step back. Are there any questions of the PSC? Now, are there any questions of the public? Thank you, Tom. We'll move on to our next item. This is our state partners updates. Cecilia with OTSI.
This is Patrice from OTSI with an update. On July 17th, OTSI received the CalSAWS Portal Mobile Contract Change Order number 9, and we received federal approval from FNS on September 17th and from CMS on September 23rd. And our second update is on the CalSAWS IV&V Services Agreement that was formally submitted to CMS for review and approval on October 4th. and we'll await their approval. That is the end of our updates for this month. Thank you.
Thank you. CDSS?
As far as with CDSS, we just have one update. The California Department of Social Service is happy to announce that Governor Gavin Newsom has appointed Jennifer Troya as the new director of CDSS. So we are very excited and happy to have her. Jen has more than 20 years of experience working on programs, serving children, adults, and families, and is deeply passionate about CDSS mission to serve, aid, and protect those most in need. So again, happy to have her as our new director. Thank you.
Thank you. DHCS.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Just a couple of updates on the DHCS front. First, just making sure folks did see MEDL 24-21 on the outstanding unwinding related renewals. We actually do now have a drop dead date that we need to complete annual renewals by that CMS is requiring the state to report out on. We have been working with counties really closely to make sure they have the automation they need and appreciate the partnership from CalSAWS and CalHERS to make sure that we could support the policies that were included in that letter. Just a couple of other things. There are some hot policies related to the CMS final rule on streamlining Medi-Cal, as well as some other policy areas that counties have asked us to engage CDSS on to make sure that we are in alignment as we move forward with functional changes. And so just letting folks know that is conversations and discussions happening at both the CalSAWS level, the county and CWDA level, but also with our partners at CDSS. And we're hopeful that we can align on many of these policies so that we can come to a system that aligns for both programs. So more to come in these meetings as we begin on those alignments. And that's it.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the PSC? Any questions of the public?
Hey, Albert, this is Jen at CalSAWS. Just for the minutes, can I confirm who provided the update for CDSS? Was it Martha?
Yep, Martha Esparza.
Okay, thank you.
If no questions of the public, we'll go ahead and move on to our next item, number 14, regional priorities. And we'll go ahead and start with Region 3.
All right, thank you. This is Ryan Bishop from Region 3. Of course, one of our top priorities is ICTs, and we are excited to keep this project moving. And please have your folks sign up for the work group. So I just want to echo that sentiment because that is a top priority for us. We also have mid-period actions, change reasons as one of our priorities, and let's see here. We're also still focused on duplicate sends and manual NOAAs and manual EDBC runs as some of our other priorities. Thank you.
Thank you. Region 4.
Good morning. For Region 4, our priorities are ICT, contact center, keeping up with functionality changes, and configure the contact centers to meet the needs of the communities. There are reports as well, focusing on fiscal reports and not missing important dates and data accuracy. And lastly, communication with the region and with the RMs. And that's what I have for Region 4. Thank you.
Thank you. Region 6.
Hi, good morning, everybody. It's the same as some other people have said, ICT, especially when we're trying to make sure we're streamlining our efforts throughout the state. So ICT is still a priority, as well as despite having the waiver for ABOD, just making sure that we are looking at automating as many processes as possible so that LA County, and given the volume of ABODs we have here, that we are streamlining our procedures when we're helping ABODs meet their work requirements.
Hi, good
Thank-
morning. This is DCFS for LA County. We are just heavily involved in the CARES FSET projects. We have a dedicated team leading the effort, and I have several eligibility staff members who participate in the work group meeting. And that's it for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Region 6. For Region 5, ICT, we will join the rest. But we also have session management and logout issues. That is a priority for us. Workload management and intake scheduling. That's another area of interest. And county filters on person search pages to allow us to narrow down on some of our customers. And then our intake informational packets, those are some. And I would like to add a fifth one as we move forward, working with our partners with DHCS, with the once we go back to performance standards, any assistance with reports or any automation or that we can get from CalSauce to assist with tracking and reporting, that would be something of interest for Region 5. Thank you. Region 1.
Good morning. For Region 1 priorities, reports is one. We're looking for continued progress on operational and state reports, as well as training opportunities to be made available to counties with regards to reporting. Work groups progress and outputs, particularly related to ICT, just like everybody else, and duplicate persons. And then the last priority around AB 79 and outbound call campaign changes, including CA 250857 update, SAR 7 not received message, and CA 279338, the call campaign reporting. That's it for us.
Thank you. And last but not least, Region 2.
Thank you and good morning. This is Eduardo from Region 2. Our priorities remain the same. This report staying at number 1. And it was great to hear our next two priorities in terms of the ICT work. We also are joining that bandwagon as well. To hear updates on that, and also with policy changes going into CalSauce system. Again, hearing an update today. Very thankful to hear those updates, and that is all for Region 2. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the PSC?
Hey, Albert, this is Ryan Bishop. I just wanted a point of clarity. I did say duplicate sends. Duplicate persons is actually our top priority. Those get mixed up frequently, and I misspoke. So thanks for the opportunity.
No, thank you. Are there any other comments or questions of the PSC? Are there any comments or questions of the public? Hearing none, I think we are to our next item. We are about to adjourn unless there's any other. If there are anything else, I think it's a good place here. It's a good place. So one last time for PSC members. Being that this is not an agenda item, I will not ask of the public. We get an hour and 50 minutes. Thank you so much all for being here this morning, and we are at adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.